be a global citizen. With endless dedication, motivation, and eagerness to make the world a better place, they have participated in the ASEAN Youth for SDGs webinar series, organized by the Ban Ki-moon Center in partnership with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, and generously funded by the government of Japan. The aim of the webinar series was and still is to encourage these young leaders to leverage on the skills, knowledge, and energy to make an impact and effectively contribute to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. The SDGs are at the heart of the Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens. At the initiative of my dear friend and former United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, I'm entrusted to co-chair this organization together with him since 2018. Our organization is dedicated to empowering youth to become global citizens and to act for the SDGs. I would like to thank UNODC and the government of Japan for their trust in our organization and support of our mission. It is only thanks to such partnerships that the ASEAN Youth for SDGs webinar series could be so successful. Let me now turn to you, dear ASEAN Youth representatives. Today's closing ceremony is dedicated to celebrating your accomplishments. With your active participation in the ASEAN Youth for SDGs webinar series and your diligence to make the most of this opportunity, you have shown that you support the mission of the Ban Ki-moon Center wholeheartedly. You have displayed your capacity to be change makers by applying your knowledge about the SDGs and utilizing your role as young leaders to find solutions for local challenges and thus make a global impact. The inspiring SDG micro-projects that you developed throughout the webinar series demonstrate the relevance of small and local actions for a better future, leaving no one behind. I repeat, leaving no one behind. Everyone can get active, even with simple tools and limited resources. Your 33 SDG micro-projects embody this principle. At the same time, we all sit in one boat when we face global crisis. The coronavirus pandemic, climate change, poverty, war, and hunger are challenges that we can only solve if we collaborate towards common goals. You come from 9 different countries. During this webinar series, you have learned from one another and identified commonalities and differences. Here in Europe, we like to use the slogan, United in Diversity, because interregional solidarity and compassing brings us closer to a future where everyone can live in dignity on a planet that guarantees safe living circumstances for all of us. With your passion for the SDGs and achievements as global citizens, you have made us at the Ban Ki-moon Center very proud. I can only encourage you to thrive on this and continue your journeys as young leaders for a better and brighter future. With that said, I congratulate you and thank you for your commitment. Stay healthy and remain a global citizen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fischer, for these very inspiring remarks. We are now happy to introduce to you Lulu Assad. Many of you will probably already have heard of her and know her. She's our representative today of UNODC, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. She herself is a UNSG, so UN Secretary General Award winner in the category of innovation, together with her team. She's currently a crime prevention and criminal justice officer with UNODC, and she's leading the work on Education for Justice, the program and the initiative. So you can imagine Lulu is managing a vast area of activities in UNODC field missions, but also with partners, and also particularly given the UNESCO mandate on GCED, the Global Citizenship Education branch, and of course, flowing from that, the E4J, Education for Justice. So she is a true change maker for the Agenda 2030, holds a master's degree in international relations, and has served for many years, the last 15 years, in different positions in UN agencies and the public and private sector. Lulu, it's a privilege and pleasure to have you with us today. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Monica, and it's lovely for me to be here today. I'm really happy, and it's always refreshing and empowering. Also gives you this energy and to continue working when you meet with youth, of course, and because you're truly the voice of tomorrow, and you are the change makers and the agents of change. So it has been really an honor to design this project and program with the Ban Ki-moon Center, with Monica, with Viola, with Catherine and the colleagues from the Ban Ki-moon Center. And also, of course, I would like to take the opportunity to thank my colleagues, actually. Gilberto's here with us. He also supported this together with also Sharifa. Thank you, Sharifa. And also, thank you, Leonardo. He's been also supporting a lot of the work. And if I may, I just prepared a super short presentation, if I can, and I will be brief. Is my voice okay, or is it cutting?
It's very good.
Okay.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Super. Thank you, Monica. So of course, this is the closing ceremony, but it's not the closing, it's not the end. I think with this work that has been undertaken by us and by Ban Ki-moon Center, I see this actually as the beginning. It's the point of departure, because we're truly hopeful that you take all of what you've learned in the area of crime prevention, criminal justice, rule of law, SDGs, and also what Ban Ki-moon Center provided you with in terms of the skills on how to manage programs and projects on the SDGs and the micro projects as well, to be able to actually utilize the knowledge and the lessons learned within your communities, which is actually what we strive to achieve. I spoke about also my colleague Gilberto, and actually I've been working with Gilberto for the last 5 years. Now he has moved to a new role. He is actually working on mainstreaming youth and SDGs across of all of UNODC's mandate areas. And we work together in conceptualizing this, and I cannot speak without him. So I would like for Gilberto, if you could please, we always reflect on what are the outcomes and what are the success of our work. And I would love to hear also from Gilberto also to introduce the outcomes to you, and you should also be proud of these outcomes. Gilberto?
Thank you very much, Lulu. It's great to be here with you in this, as Lulu said, it's not the end. Maybe we can call it the final step in one of the phases of our partnership with youth in Southeast Asia. But it's great to be here and to take stock of some of our accomplishments over the past few months. And I think that when we started this, when we started working with all of you, especially with Sharifa, we were very, very surprised to see how engaged everyone was in some of the topics that are of primary concern to UNODC. And it also reinforces the message that we're trying to convey, which is that crime, justice, rule of law topics, and of course, their dimensions within the SDGs are of everyone's concern, and there can be no sustainable development without promoting the rule of law. And that is also why promoting the rule of law is a part of the 2030 agenda. So we're very happy to have been able to see how receptive everyone was in these areas. And I think that We were also able to experience that through the different sessions we had, including with the Ban Ki-moon Center. And in particular, having participated in a few of them, I was also very happy to learn about the different points of view everyone has from their different countries, learning how your various cultural dimensions and experiences influence your vision for the rule of law right now and where you want to get and where you want to take your respective communities. So I think that this has been great to witness throughout this series of events that we've been organizing since the very first one in December. So we very much hope that you can also take some of these positive aspects, which have been, learning about where you want to go, where the rule of law comes in your different communities, and how you can use all of these practical skills and knowledge concerning the rule of law and SDGs to make those changes through the different projects you want to implement in your communities. This is all I wanted to say for now, and I'll just hand it over back to Lulu. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gilberto. And actually, I always like to tell a story. I remember when we first started conceptualizing the idea, and me and Gilberto were thinking, okay, we really need to find a different way of working and engaging with youth. And we were thinking, who could we engage with? And immediately we were like, the Ban Ki-moon Center. And it's been, we've collaborated a lot, but every time we engage with you and we work with you, we also learn in the process, because actually I've also seen the amazing engagement that also took place with this SDG micro project and the training and all of this experience that also was shared from Ban Ki-moon's side with the youth. I think it is very beneficial, and I'm sure that it has imparted something with all of the youth that were participating. And one of the webinars that took place, I really also took note of something that Viola said, and she said global empathy, compassion are important and fundamental components of the global citizenship. And this is true, because we need empathy, we need compassion to actually think global, but act local. And this is what we really strive to do. And of course, the entire project that we worked on together. It's a true testament to what we want to achieve as partners. And it was also an interesting, I think, element when we exposed the youth together with the Ban Ki-moon Center. We exposed all of you also to the work of the UN Crime Congress, one of the main policy-making bodies of the United Nations in the area of the rule of law and crime prevention. And your voices, your opinions were all reflected. They were made available also to the Crime Congress as a conference room paper, also in appreciation of your work, and also to make your voices heard to policymakers and to also all of the relevant stakeholders. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time, for your work, for your dedication, and for actually even working. Many of you joined those webinars in your weekends, in your free time. We know you have jobs, but this really shows the level of your commitment and dedication. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Viola, and also Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lulu, and I can only give the compliments back to you. It's been such a great partnership working with the UNODC, and you and I, Sharifa, Gilberto, and your whole team have been basically communicating almost every day, thanks to this wonderful group of 33 ASEAN young leaders, whom everything today is about. So I want to go into what we've experienced together once more, because I think after such an intensive learning period, it's always good to kind of look at everything from the beginning to the end, what we've been through together, so to say. So thank you so much. My name is Viola Christian. If I may introduce myself one more time, I have been the program officer in charge of this project together with these 33 young leaders from the Southeast Asian region. And it's been my utmost pleasure to be working with them, to be seeing their inspiring work and their amazing activism for the SDGs. And I would like to introduce you to the whole webinar series that we have been going through together. Now, we've met first on the 3rd of March, and we met for a webinar on the SDGs, the global citizenship, on SDG micro project implementation, and boom, there it was, the word SDG micro project. So that was the first time that you were familiarized with this concept of a small project that might be small in scale, but make a big impact. And that can be done only by yourself and also with limited resources. So this was the first time that we introduced you to this. And also you were also reporting back on what you've done for the SDGs so far. And our expert, Mr. Darcy Lunn, who was a very engaged expert, also showed us how simple it is to contribute to the SDGs. And I think that inspired many of us. Second meeting that we were a much bigger group. As you can see, we had a few new faces joining us. And so I'm very excited that these young additional members of the group were able to join us for the side event on the 14th United Nations Crime Congress in Kyoto. What we wanted to do with this event was really to bring the Kyoto Crime Congress, which sounds so far away from us right now, into practice. So we wanted to look at what does the Crime Congress do for every one of our daily lives. So we looked into different examples of how can the topics of the Crime Congress be put into practice on the ground. And we had, for example, Billy Botwer, who reported back from the Congress in Kyoto directly. We had our dear friend Barbara Nakijoba, who also talked about her peace project in her local area. And we also had our speaker Mridul Upadhyay, who reported from his activities as coordinator of a peace and young peace network in Asia, and told us what it takes to build a movement. And I think a lot of us were inspired. And I remember how our dear colleague Maria Teresa, who is a colleague of yours, spoke so passionately of the Kyoto Crime Congress, but also of how important it is to involve youth into the discussions. And I think it was for everyone, and especially and really for me as well, totally inspiring and beautiful to see. The last webinar that we had in this kind of group format was our actual practical workshop on SDG micro project ideation. So we formed groups of 5 or 6 different members, and each of your groups were so heavily engaged in finding ideas how to make an impact. How can we effectively contribute to the SDGs by just doing a small scale project? So that was kind of the turning point. I think that was a moment where you realized, hey, it doesn't have to change the world immediately. It can be a step towards a changed world. And I think that was a really great experience as well. Good. Then we started with the SDG micro project incubator. We kind of let you go into the free world, so to say, and you were trying to figure out what can you do as your SDG micro project. So you looked at your community, you found, okay, this is where I can make a difference. So then you had an idea, this is how I can make a difference. Then you kind of try to figure out, okay, how can I do this? How can I plan this? How can it be put into practice? And once you had it all settled and your goal in front of your eyes, You took your SDG micro project plan and filled it out. And I'm telling you, I've been reading 33 SDG micro project plans that have simply inspired me. And they are so different in each SDG micro project that you came up with is just so different and so impactful. And it really was beautiful for me to read through them. And thank you so much for sharing this. I also want to stress that we're currently in a global pandemic. So really, I can only say how thankful I am, and the whole team of the Ban Ki-moon Center is, for your achievements. Even though you were currently maybe facing major difficulties in your communities, you still made it happen. And I also want to remind the audience as well that we had a few participants also from Myanmar. And unfortunately, because of the situation in the country, they have not been able to join us this time for this SDG webinar series. And it's amazing to see how they have been engaged in their countries' activism for peace and democracy. And this is, I think, even though they didn't join, I think they really set an example. And I think that is something that we have to stress here. So thank you also for their achievements. I want to look at what you focused on in the end. We can see here that the big winner is quality education. So we can see definitely that you're a group who is passionate about education. What I was surprised about, though, was that you also focused heavily on SDG 3, good health and well-being, and also on SDG 16, which was kind of also already on my mind when I met you in the first few phases of the webinar series. So as you can see, very different, but SDG 4 is definitely the winner here. And with that little recap, I want to turn back to Monica and give her the final sentences on this first part of our closing ceremony.
Thank you so much, Viola. You have led us like a whirlwind through the weeks that we have spent together, and I hope that it puts smiles on many of your faces. It's good to see that you have been inspired by what you have heard. And you know, one of the highlights of this closing ceremony is actually upcoming soon. But before we do that, before we actually award the best ranks of the video pitches, I want to turn to Lana Lauren, who is accompanying us today again with her graphic recording. You already know Lana. Hi, Lana. Can you share with us what you have already taken away so far?
So let's have a look. Can you hear me? I think you can. Yes.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
So we started with the video with introductory words from you, and then we heard a video message from Heinz Fischer, who put emphasis on the 3 young leaders that really demonstrated during this whole course what it means to be a global citizen. And he pointed out one more time something you may all have heard, hopefully, and also kept in your heart, which is leave no one behind. Lulu Assad also said something that I thought is a very good thing to keep in mind, which is that this is not the end, even though it's a closing ceremony, but it's the beginning, and the way is going to continue. Heard that the event and the whole working together led to an even higher and strengthened commitment, and how important and great it is that your voices have been heard. And finally, Viola led us, as you just said, Monica, through the sessions. And we had a short recap from the sessions 1, 2, and what happened afterwards. The first one being the introduction of the projects. In the second one, we discussed the UN Crime Congress in Kyoto. And let me switch to another slide. We heard again about the Ideation workshop and how it led to incubators and the great projects that were developed after that, which we're going to hear even more about soon, as far as I know. And that the main SDG that has been picked by all of you guys was number 4, which is quality education.
Wonderful. Lana, thank you so much. So dear leaders, now it's the moment of truth, because we are actually turning to the video pitches that you have all submitted. I have to admit, when I saw them, I had goosebumps and even tears in my eyes. So that means a lot. And we are starting with the 3 best of those that we have chosen from you guys, and hence drum roll for the 3rd place in the video pitch competition. I am glad to announce Fitira from Indonesia. Please have a look at her amazing video pitch.
Pandemic, school closure, online learning. Did you get what I'm trying to tell you about? Teenagers by now are using the internet more frequent than ever. During this pandemic, they almost need to stay 24/7 on the internet. Online classes, homeworks, online games, surfing and interacting with their friends through social medias, those are the only things they can do in order to not get bored with today's situation. But what happened